Alright, in this video I'd like to go ahead and solve this equation. We're solving the equation 3 minus x equals 7. And I may do this a little bit unconventional, but I just want to work through some of the ideas that are important when solving equations, okay? So the first thing is, let's rearrange this equation, okay? I have a personal preference that x be in front, okay, or the variable term be first. So let's do that. Let's rewrite this equation using the commutative property. Let's rewrite this as the sum of two numbers, okay? And we can do that by rewriting this 3 plus a negative x. Okay, all I'm doing is attaching this negative sign to the x and rewriting with a plus sign. This allows me now to use a commutative property and rearrange these. Okay, I can swap these back and forth and I will still get the same solution. Alright, so let's rewrite this as negative x plus 3 equals 7. Okay, next up, what I'd like to do is let's isolate our variable term. What's the variable term? Well, the variable term is anything that's attached to the variable. Okay, so this will be our variable term. What I want to do is I want to eliminate anything on the left side that's operating, or it could be doing arithmetic, it could be something that's being done onto this variable term. And right now, that's this plus 3. So what can we do to eliminate this addition of 3? Well, let's do the opposite. The opposite of adding 3 is subtracting 3. In other words, we're applying the subtraction property of equality, which simply states you can subtract any number. Okay, it could be any number. It could be 1,000,000. You could subtract 1,000,000 from either side of this equation, and it'll still hold true, and it will still have the same solution as when you hadn't subtracted 1,000,000, right? But we got to be strategic. I'm going to subtract 3 because positive 3 and negative 3, these are additive inverses. Okay, what does that mean? That means plus 3 minus 3, they sum to 0. Okay, in other words, they cancel. These terms cancel. What are we left with? We're left with this negative x. Okay, negative x is still hanging out. What about on the right side of the equal sign? Okay, 7 minus 3, well, that's easy. That's 4. Okay, so we did a little simplification. We applied first the commutative property, right? We applied the subtraction property of equality. Next up, what we want to do is let's apply the multiplication property of equality. Okay, this is a fancy way of saying I have some number, a negative 1 right here, that's being multiplied onto x, right? We could think of this as negative 1 times x equals 4. And I need to multiply or divide this equation by some number as to eliminate this negative 1, okay? And to do this, maybe you're thinking ahead, right? The idea is we could divide by negative 1 or we could multiply by negative 1, right? The rule exists that negative 1 times itself is 1, okay? This is an identity property of negative numbers, right? Negative 1 times negative 1 is equal to positive 1. So let's do that. Let's eliminate this negative 1. Let's do it by multiplying by negative 1. Okay? Let's go ahead and show how we're multiplying across. Negative 1 times negative 1, well, that's positive 1, right? Negative 1 times positive 1, or negative 1x is positive 1x. It's just 1x. Negative 1 times positive 4, well, that's negative 4. Okay? And by convention, we don't have to write the positive 1. It's understood that in front of x, there's a 1, right? So x is equal to negative 4. A simple way of putting this, guys, if you multiply, I'm going to come back to this equation right here, negative x equals 4. If you multiply by negative 1, we're flipping all the signs, okay? Flip the signs. Multiply by negative 1. This becomes positive x, and that becomes negative 4, okay? Same thing. Flipping the signs. Let's now evaluate this value for x in the original equation. Let's make sure it satisfies the equation and we get a true statement, okay? Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to get 3 minus x equals 7, and let's let x equal negative 4, okay? So we'll get 3 minus negative 4 equals 7. If you remember your rules for subtraction of integers, when you are subtracting a negative, that's the same as adding its opposite. Okay, so this is 3 plus the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. And lo and behold, 3 plus 4 is equal to 7, so this is true. This is a true statement. Which means this here is a solution to, oops, I don't know what my computer's doing here. This is a solution to this equation, okay? And you can write that in set notation. Sometimes you'll see this, x is equal to -4, okay?